Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening and welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and once again, thanks for joining me. Each week, as you know, we have a great guest and we have a great topic, and this week as well. As you know, I always talk about sales and marketing being your most important job, and that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight. Definitely our guest has a lot of experience in the space, but also, we don't always necessarily cover it from the idea generation standpoint and product development. So those are key pieces of being able to sell and market effectively, because, at the end of the day, there needs to be the right product market fit. And figuring out what that is and what the right product is important, and how to come up with the ideas for the right type of products for your market. So tonight, my guest is Raphael McGowan, and we're going to talk about the topic of idea generation and product development for growth, because it's important to grow as a business, and one of the ways you grow is through new products and services. So let me invite Raphael on now. Hey, Raphael, how are you doing tonight?
Good, thank you, Andrew.
Excellent. So thanks for joining us. Definitely it's still daytime there. So where are you, Australia?
So I'm in Australia, Sunshine Coast.
Okay,
so
excellent.
Beautiful part of the country.
Okay. And definitely appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight to kind of talk and share your expertise with our audience.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. And as you can see, I'm in between meetings, so thankfully I have a van. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
Okay, excellent. So before we get started, just want you to take a few minutes to kind of talk a little bit about your story, where you came from, how you got to where you are now.
Certainly. So I'm very fortunate to have 7 brothers and sisters. Mum and dad, they're still together, and we were raised in a small country town in Australia, probably 20,000 people, and I can't complain about my childhood. Up until the age of 18, played lots of sport, did pretty good at school, but I always found that on my report cards I would talk too much. I just had a lot of energy, and sometimes I wasn't that interested in classes. And when I finished high school, I decided to work for a year. And then I was really at a crossroad. What do I do next? And a friend of mine, being from a small country town, most friends went into traditional jobs. Never did I hear anyone around me talk about entrepreneurship or starting their own business. It was more so that they would go into traditional businesses that we would learn about at school. And then a friend of mine went over to the UK, and he went there for 6 months working, traveling, and he came back and shared all these amazing stories. And I thought, why couldn't I do that? So I saved up some money and knew a couple of friends who lived in the US, up in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I got in contact with them and said, do you mind if I come over and stay with you for 3 months? And they said, sure, come over. So I did. That turned into almost a year. Then I went down to Tennessee where I've got some family. Spent another almost year with them, then went out to LA and met some people out there and worked, and it was just an amazing experience. And then I wasn't ready to quite come home. So I then had a call with mum and dad, and they said, you coming home for Christmas? And I said, not yet. I'm still growing as a person. I'm learning all these different possibilities of life. Um, and so I'm going to continue. So I went over to Scotland, then South America, then back to the UK for a little bit. And after 5 years, I felt that I had grown and matured as a person, and I was ready to start using more of this. So I came back to Australia, went to university. That was an amazing experience. Met lots of good people, got some good skills, then went and applied those down in Sydney, where I worked in corporate roles for 3 or 4 years, then moved into the not-for-profit space, which I found a little bit more fulfilling, in line with what I was wanting to do. And during that time, I started to come up with ideas, and eventually it came to that point where I said, that's it, I've got to commit. I was working on trying to get ideas off the ground, but working 50, 60 hours a week, traveling, it just didn't allow for it. So I resigned from that job. I moved back to where I live now, and I've been here for the last 6 years, getting my business off the ground and other ventures as well. So that's really what brings me to today. So pretty interesting, but have certainly loved every part of life so far.
Okay, great, great. So no, I mean that's a great background, and you had some really tremendous friends that you could go stay like half a year with in Minnesota. So that was really nice that you got to do that. So traveling like that gives a lot of perspective. And what were some of the key perspectives that you gained from traveling to different areas of this country and to this country?
I really found that no matter where I went, the most important thing was probably relationships. Being myself, being honest, and making sure that I would take the time to learn about other people. Everyone's got a story, everyone's got a background. Just making sure that I was probably aware of that, and conscious of it. Where in my previous years, throughout my teenage years, early 20s, I'm sort of moving from one thing to the next. But then when I was traveling, and I've really kept this same mindset throughout, is that you meet different people, take time to talk to them, learn from them, ask different questions, whether it's business, life, relationships, and then you can sort of store it up here. And I've always made an effort to keep in contact with those people that I've met. That's a good practice that I've also now adopted with business.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, relationships can be critical. Well, are critical to your success in business and in life. And it's great that you developed those skills at an early age. Also it's interesting that you had a lot of experience before you went to university, and a lot of people don't. And how do you think that changed your perspective there? And what do you think that gave you versus other people who are coming in without that type of experience?
I honestly don't think, Andrew, that I would have been able to have been as successful in terms of relationships, the marks, and also understanding what I was doing if I had gone to university straight out of high school. I just knew I wasn't ready. So by going there mid-20s, I felt that I could concentrate more, and a lot of what they were teaching, I could apply directly to what I had experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So that really did help me. And at the same time, I was able to still feel youthful by having lots of friends who were 4 or 5 years younger than me, and maybe be able to share some stories or a little bit of wisdom that I might have had at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent, excellent. So you introduced yourself, but you didn't say what you're doing now, and your company Backslap
Sure.
is pretty ingenious. You really created a market where there wasn't a market, really.
Yeah,
So explain what it is you're doing and why.
certainly. So that happens a lot. People might say backslap. What is backslap? So backslap really started when I finished university. I was looking to do something for a few months before entering the corporate world, and I had 2 friends that I'd met in the US, and they decided that they were going to cycle from the East Coast over to the West Coast, spend 80 days, carry all their gear. And I just thought, you know what? Not only is that a good holiday or adventure, but it's a real practical way for me to put all these skills that I learned at university about teamwork and conflict into practice. So I decided to do that, trained for a few months, went over there, and it was probably with about 50 days into that trip that I received a call one day from my dad, and it was certainly out of the ordinary. And he told me that my older sister, who was 2 years older than me, had a skin check. She had a mole that they had found was melanoma and it had spread throughout her body, and they were giving her less than 12 months to live. So that was a huge shock, and it took me a few days in silence to eventually share it with the friends that I was cycling with. And then shortly after, I packed up, came back to Australia, moved down to Sydney, and spent some time with her and a young family, as well as the rest of my family. And then she passed away 11 months later. And when that happened, something inside of me changed, and I thought, okay, maybe now I can combine these skills that I have with something that I'm passionate about. And that passion has always been to help other people, but I just haven't quite understood how I could do that. So I started volunteering with some organizations in Australia who do a lot of melanoma and skin cancer research. And I would help at those events. I did that for a couple of years whilst working full time. And then I just, through observation, I noticed that people would go to the beach and so many people were burnt in the middle of their back because they couldn't quite reach, and they would leave it. And then I found that research said that it's the most at-risk place for developing melanoma is in the middle of your back. So I thought, let's do something about it. And originally, there was another company that had created some sort of device that you could use to put your sunscreen in the middle of your back. And originally, I reached out to them and said, hey, maybe I could start to help market your product. And they said, yeah, okay. And then when I looked at it, I thought, you know what, Raf, maybe this is an opportunity that you can put your business skills and create something from scratch. So then I started to work on that for almost 2 years, started a business plan, did some research, but it just didn't really get anywhere. And that's when I decided to quit my job, move back up here. And yeah, 6 years ago, I remember sitting at a desk going, okay, where do I start? I'd never developed products before. I'd never marketed my own product or created a brand. Sales wasn't something which I had full control over ever in previous positions. So every aspect of a small business, I was almost learning from scratch. And that really did excite me. It felt like I was alive. It felt like every day I was using 100% of my own personality and skills, rather than sometimes in previous jobs, maybe 30%, but I was having to keep most of that energy and ideas reserved because it wasn't really suitable for that particular role. And I still feel that today, that 100% every day I'm turning up and this is me. So when that started, I spent the next 2 years designing a product, learning about creating products, working with AutoCAD drawers, prototyping, doing everything I could on a budget. I was very much bootstrapping those early days. And then eventually it came to a point where I needed to put a few more funds in. So then I thought, okay, now it's time to go out and start raising a little bit of money. And I had the idea to do a Kickstarter campaign. That went really well, and we're able to then prove the product, pre-selling $50,000 worth. That allowed us then to go into manufacture for our first production run. And yeah, it was a pretty exciting time. And once the product was available, that's where I'm sure we can go into more detail. But yeah, you concentrate so much early on getting the product made, getting it to market, giving it some sort of brand identity. Then you go, wow, so much was done. Let me take a break. And then you realize, oh, actually, now I've got to sell it. So I certainly came to that crossroad at some point. And from that point now, fast forwarding 4 years that we've been available in the market, it's something which has very much morphed from a device to allow you to apply sunscreen into something much more multi-purpose that still provides assistance, but very much these days it's to occupational therapists, people with mobility issues, people receiving radiation treatment who need to apply it to their back. Even aged care is a big sector for us, where people might not be able to reach down to their legs or their ankles. So that's, yeah, it's really developed, but core at why we started was around finding a way to be able to promote sun safety awareness, and give a device to help people apply sunscreen where they might not be able to reach, so they don't get burnt.
Okay. All right. So it's almost, also a business, not just from the business standpoint to make money, but also make a difference in the world. And probably for a whole bunch of people who ended up not getting cancer as a result. So that's excellent. So we're going to dig into that and your experience doing that. But before we do that, we run this show, Leadership Live, along with many other business brain trust initiatives out of the Small Business Pro University. So I'm going to take a minute to just show a video about what the Small Business Pro University is, and then we'll be back with Raphael talking small business.
Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded the Small Business Pro University to help business owners break that cycle by empowering them with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead their companies more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've worked one-on-one with more than 1,000 business owners and taught tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a Navy officer, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to grow revenue, increase profit, and obtain financing faster and easier. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include more than 100 expert-led multimedia courses and training programs with more than 2,500 lessons. The Small Business Pro Network, our private community for entrepreneurs. Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, our weekly live stream and podcast. Advanced Learning Institutes focused on revenue generation, profit maximization, and capital acquisition. And the Power Breakfast series, in-person events where business owners learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. If you want to sell more and make more, you need to check out Small Business Pro University. Visit our website at www.sbprou.com.
Welcome back. We're here with Raphael McGowan. We're talking small business, a little bit about idea generation and product development. You just shared a little bit about your product development experience. And, one thing that, I talk to business owners or people thinking about going into business is many times everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much. Has that been your experience, and how did you deal with that or work through that successfully?
Certainly. Yeah, Andrew, I would agree with that. I would say the first 2 years of when I first sat down to get this business started was spent on product development. That phase, originally, I thought I could have done in 12 months and then go to market. And you're correct, it took 2 years. Everything does take a little bit longer because you also don't want to rush the process. I was learning. Originally, I was drawing product outlines or ideas on bits of paper, scanning them, sending them to like AutoCAD designers to then bring that to life. Then I would go and find ways to get that 3D printed. I went through 9 different prototypes before I committed for the first version to go to market. And that was because it was new to me. I wanted to make sure that at each stage I didn't rush it, that I took that product out to potential customers and I had something that could put in their hand. Sometimes I made it out of Play-Doh. There was one version that just to change the size of it, and that way you'd go out and then eventually because every dollar matters. I then committed to paying a couple $100 to getting it 3D printed so it would start to function, and then you would show that, create videos, get feedback on it. So it does take a long time. And then, of course, there's samples from factories. Then, of course, packaging. How are you going to package it? But I found that it was a very exciting time of the business because you really can be creative, and creative in that how you find solutions. So packaging, I would go in and look at products all throughout pharmacies, open them up, and the package design I went for was a tiny little box that was this big, and it held a little lotion in it, but the way it functioned and looked was perfect. I then had some help to take it from this size to this size, where 27 centimeters, so maybe that's about 16 inches, I think. And that was the packaging size. So there's lots of ways to get creative with it. It does take longer. I tried to save a lot of money where I could. And I think I was pretty savvy with that. Um, so yeah, it was a journey, but it gets quicker. I've found that other product versions that I've done since, new product design, new packaging, I'm so much quicker at it. Not only for my own business, but now helping other businesses be able to take their idea, get it produced and bring it to market. It's just a valuable skill that you have to go through that hard period where it might seem like I'm just not learning at all, but you really are. And yeah, it does get easier.
Okay, great. So now, I liked how you talked about, you went into the store and found the box. And, one of the things I find and just, share with other business owners is you really need to be a student of business. And everywhere you go, there's some business related piece to it, anything you look at. And rather than just looking at it as what it is, thinking through the business side of it. So, I don't look at commercials anymore as like a commercial, but as, what did they do? How did they do this? Why did they do this? And I'm sure you started doing that as well.
I
And
think
in business,
something switches in us, Andrew, I believe, and agree with what you said, is that once you start going down this path of having your own business, everything that you look at isn't just sitting there and consuming, whether it's an advert or packaging. You're looking at, okay, I walk into a business, look how they're displaying that product, look how they're greeting me, what's their follow-up, and are they getting my contact details? You're looking at every part of their business as a way to learn, how can I take a piece of that and implement it in my own business? So yeah, I
definitely,
definitely agree. It's almost like
definitely.
the world opens up and you see it differently. And you know what? It's exciting.
Yes, very, very. And one great thing about business is there's no like product authorship. There's it's actually encouraged for you to beg, borrow, and steal from what other people are doing and utilize it. What are some of the other key things that you've taken from your learning from other businesses, what they're doing, and taking that and incorporated it to what you're doing?
I would say my biggest source of getting that information would be through podcasts, listening to um, podcasts such as yours, where other people are sharing the highs and the lows of business, as well as business cases where they might narrate, okay, here's the case of how Nike started, or here's the story between Nike and Pepsi. Sorry, not Nike, Coke and Pepsi. Just even though even though those companies are huge multi-million dollar, billion dollar companies, they all seem to have the same struggles that you start. They were all a small business at one stage. And a lot of it, again, comes back to looking after your customers and putting them at the center, making sure that you're communicating with them genuinely, keeping them up to date, more than just about the product, but about your brand, as well as finding out feedback from them. Hey, what new color are you wanting? What do you like about this version of the product? What could we improve? It's just making sure that I've always found, and we use the word in for our business, is journey. So become part of the journey. Thanks for being part of the journey. Because as you touched on previously, the idea for this business Backslap, yes, we may have a product and an applicator, but that was really just a talking point. I very much see this business as a social enterprise. There's two parts to it. One is the product, It generates the revenue that allows the business to grow, and allows us to add new products, do partnerships. That's wonderful. But the other side of the business is, what can we do to support and help other people's lives? That might be through skin cancer awareness events. It might be through initiatives that we do to raise money to then be able to give to those research centers to help fund a particular project. It might also be awareness campaigns. We've got one at the moment where one of our corporate partners is Volkswagen, and they've now gone and co-branded one of our applicators, and they're giving that away with every new car that's sold. And the idea behind that is that they've been impacted by skin cancer. They realize that it's an important issue in Australia. So they want to team up together, and that way, when a new customer purchases a vehicle, they want to be able to give them something that has a story behind it, has a purpose. So that's just another way that, again, you can make impact, which isn't about selling product, making money from it. It's about the greater purpose.
Okay, excellent. So, you know, when you get started, one of the challenges is always funding. How did you finance your business and make it work? What did it take?
I love this question because there's so many parts to it. When I first started, I used my house deposit. So I had a house deposit years ago, and I put my 5% down. I was going to buy it. And then when I decided to quit my job, because of course everything happens at the same time, I decided to pull out from that, and I wanted to keep that money there as a reserve. And then over that first 6 months, I needed that money to be able to move the business forward. And it's actually a really good skill because it taught me to watch every single dollar, because it was my own money. That I knew would only last so long, because once you started getting to the point of having to manufacture and having to buy quantities of product and stock, as well as other bigger overheads, I was going to need some investment for that. And that was always something which I wanted to experience, being able to create a product, a brand, and then raise investment to allow it to grow. But I also wanted to raise that investment because I wanted people involved in this journey who had a different skill set than mine. And if they had more experience, which a lot of them did, I welcomed that so I could have their input and learn. But I knew that they would be sharing that knowledge around business to help benefit me and backslap. So how I went about that was, I first went out and started making a list of everyone that I knew in my network. So it started with friends, family, former colleagues, and then I would just put an idea of, if I were to approach them, how. Some of those people were large CEOs, venture capitalists, and there was no need to approach them because I hadn't really proven the concept yet. So then I started with people who I'd previously worked with, and I found that they knew me. They knew how I operated. If I said I was going to do something, I would do it. And so I treated them as any other investor of any other level, where I prepared a document, sent it through to them, asked them whether they would consider it. They said yes. I would then meet up with them or have a Skype call, pitch the idea, and then I remember my initial investor was $1,000, and I couldn't believe that someone had worked hard for that money and was willing to put $1,000 in to be able to move my idea forward. So that was wonderful. And then in total now there's 8 investors, and that number sort of grew from 1,000, and then realizing I needed a little bit more. It was then 2,000, 10,000, and that has now grown to just over 200,000 for the last investor. And yeah, it's each time very, very thankful for it. There is one interesting story actually with one investor that I approached. Very wealthy family in Australia, very philanthropic as well. And I had a contact that knew them very well, and I said, hey, maybe they might want to support this particular idea that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And I've prepared a document for them, investment proposal, that if they were to invest this much, they would get this much percentage back. Never would I ask anyone for a donation. So I did all that, shared it with them, and 2 weeks later, we were both at an event, and the wife pulled me aside and she said, you know what, Raphael? She said, we're very wealthy. Everyone knows that. And everyone comes to us looking for money, but never offering anything in return. She said, you're the only one who's come to us with a proposal, offered equity in exchange for it. And she said, for that reason, we're going to give you $50,000. So I couldn't believe it. It was very timely for the business, and it was almost just a reminder that um, you have to treat everyone the same. That you are in business, you're not looking for a handout. You want to earn it, and what I had, the most valuable thing at the time was equity in the business, and I was willing to give that because their funds were going to move the business forward. So that's an overview of how I went about raising that investment. For now, it's head down working with those investors. I'd take something on. So every 2 months, I send them a brief overview. I just do that off my own initiative, where I just give them a snapshot of what's gone on the last couple of months, usually over 2 pages, maybe a few images. This is what's in the pipeline. And that way, I'm not expecting them to reply to those emails, but at least they're being kept aware that this is your investment and this is how we're moving forward. And at any point in time, if they were to read anything, see anything online, and they got suggestions, I welcome that. I always make sure that if they've got any ideas for the business, come and share it. It's certainly not me pressing forward. And the latest investor, I realized that I was really lacking in being able to go to that next level. And that's why, as you've touched on many times, the need for having those experienced people around you and getting real business help, because I was quite limited. And thankfully, I was able to find someone who was very experienced, very successful in business, and really resonated with what I had created and what I was wanting to create, and has come on board. And I'm like a sponge. He says something, he provides his reasoning, and I'm happy to take it on board and put it into action, because I've got a real opportunity being able to work with someone with so much experience. Where the other investors, they're more hands off, which is fine. That's all they want it to be, but it's a pretty exciting time for the business. So just to wrap up this question, so I don't rave on too much. So that was investment. I also put in funds myself. We then did a Kickstarter campaign where we didn't provide equity. We just pre-sold the product at a discount rate. It was 20% off, and that allowed us to raise 50,000. Of course, we've also looked for funding opportunities through grants, government grants, local council grants. That's been really successful. We just received a $30,000 export grant, now working with our government to help export Backslap over to the US because of the demand we've been getting from there. So always looking for different funding options. Grants, as many listeners would know, it's a slow process. You can't put all your eggs in that particular basket, but when they are successful, it certainly helps. But always looking for different funding options where we can. And the other option also is partnerships. So we sometimes are able to provide our partners or come on with new partners where we might create initiatives where they would then provide us funding to run certain campaigns and events, as well as sometimes we offer the opportunity where, because we have quite a large audience, and when we are sending out our orders, and because there are a lot, you also have the customer's attention. So when we find a particular partner, we're able to also then sell that space where they might have a double-sided card with some messaging between us, so it doesn't look out of place in terms of branding, and then that's provided to each customer, so then you have their attention. And so yeah, looking for different ways that you can generate some of that revenue, but allow the business to still be funded to grow.
Okay, no, that's great example. Most businesses, even the huge ones, were started with less than $10,000. As you grow, as you move forward, you may need more. But sometimes a lot of people think, we need a whole bunch of money to get started. If you had a whole bunch of money when you started, how well do you think you would have done with it?
Great question, Andrew. It would have been a disadvantage. It would have been a disadvantage to have this big pot of $100,000 sitting there. Yes, I may have spent that $100,000 over the first 2 years, but it wasn't necessary. And I wouldn't have these skills It would have certainly reduced my resilience and determination and comfort level if you had money sitting there. I've always said this to anyone that, because I do a little bit of teaching, which we can get into, but I share that with students as well as any other people that I'm talking with, that money shouldn't be an inhibitor for you starting a business and also growing. There's many ways you can go about it, and not having a lot of that money really does set you up. So when you do have money, you still watch it and spend every dollar wisely, and still look for ways that you can cut costs. To be comfortable, I don't think that's a good idea for business, and especially when you're driven to grow, go to new markets, reach more customers. You still want that hunger, and having a lack of money certainly gives you that hunger.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So no, I mean it's tremendous. So now, who was your first customer, and what do you remember about them, and what was how did you feel after that?
Another great question. So the first customer, so although we had hundreds of customers through the Kickstarter, I don't really count them as our first customer. I would say our first customer was when that first stock arrived. It was delivered into my garage, and I probably had 6 or 7 friends that were over at my house, big kitchen table, and there was like a big production line. We were figuring out on the fly, okay, now we've got these products, how do we actually package them? How do we print postage slips to then send out to all these customers who pre-ordered the product during the Kickstarter? We were writing every label by hand. We didn't know about thermal printers. We didn't have a packaging box that we could put it into to ship it. We were very, very green, and it was wonderful. And I would say that during that time when we were packaging up, a courier driver came around, because I reached out to a courier driver locally and said, I've heard about a thermal printer. Can you come around and help us? We're doing a few orders. He walked in and he just said, what's going on here? And there were products and orders all over the floor everywhere, hundreds of them. And he just looked around. He said, wow, okay, let's help you. And then that day, he must have gone down to a local pharmacy and said to them, hey, there's this new product. They're selling a lot of them. It looks pretty cool. You should give them a call. So they called me up and said, we'd like a box. At that stage, we hadn't even thought about wholesale. We didn't have a retail display. We thought we would just sell online. Couldn't believe it. So we found a box, put their 15 in, and dropped it down the next day. And yeah, you just can't forget your first customer, because it's pretty exciting, and they're still a customer today. I just saw them on the weekend, and it's something, again, it just comes back to those relationships. They took a chance by stocking a brand new product, but that opened the door to allow us to then go and find other retailers and fast track what we thought we would start off with just online, to suddenly we could sell through both channels immediately.
Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, it's always interesting when you think back to your first customer. I always like going into like stores where they have like their first dollar bill on the wall and other stuff. So it's always good to ask that question. So now, one thing that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs don't do enough of, or even sometimes skip this step, is market research and analysis. And talk a little bit about what you did in terms of market and research and analysis then, and then if you were to do it over again, how would you do it?
Okay. I was pretty happy with the market research. I love research, and I really wanted to make sure before committing financially as well as my time that there was a market for this particular product, there was a need for it, and what already existed wasn't sufficient or could be improved upon. So easily 12 months I would have spent some of that time whilst I was in Sydney building out that initial business plan. Even though I didn't have a product design in mind, it was still the idea. Is there a device that will allow people to apply lotion easily? And what existed was a lot of fixed products. So I went down the path of looking online, Europe, USA, Australia, any sort of related product I would purchase. So then I could track what was the customer experience like when that product arrived. I would use it, test it, take notes, put it in a table, and each time I had a little column where it was what I liked, what I didn't like. And it was really important to identify what were the pain points with other products, how I could improve on them. And this sort of reinforces your statement in the beginning, in that business is an open field. You're encouraged to learn, take, share, steal, borrow from what already exists. And I felt that, yes, there was sufficient room for this particular product to be improved. And through that observation, I also made sure I looked at not only the physical product, but how it was marketed. Where was it available? Did it have a brand feel to it? Or was this business based around this one product? And because I wanted to come from a brand point of view and have it so much more than just a product, I also wanted to make sure that it would be a business that was looking to grow and had an identity and a personality to it, not just here's a product, which essentially it might be, here's a stick with a sponge on the end. So that was it, and got pretty creative with making sure that our product was able to fold and be portable. And then we combined that with early customer research, where we would go and ask customers, if you use this type of product, yes, what would you want to see improved on it? And then constantly going back. And I felt with all that market research, it then made it much more comfortable and confident to then be able to commit to getting that first production run done. So yeah, that's probably the research. I feel like we did a good job, and that certainly continues today. You're always looking to see what other related products, similar products might be coming available. What are they doing that you might also be able to include on your next version to improve it? But whenever we do, we're now up to the 4th iteration of our product, and we've done additional products on the side. We've added a loofah sponge because we would go back to our customers, because we've got such a big database. I feel like use them, ask them questions. What else do you want to use this for? What do you like? What does it need to do that it's not doing? And so you would get that feedback, and also by asking people constantly and being open to them, not giving criticism, but giving suggestions. So you have to take that on board rather than thinking that you know it all. And that's really allowed us to get to this point.
Okay. No, I mean, it's amazing what you did, especially for the first time out in terms of market research, because, at the end of the day, understanding your competition at that level of detail, I'm sure made all the difference in the world. A lot of times I always talk to people about, say, how are you different from your competition? And many times they don't even have a good explanation. But if I was to say, how are you different from your competition, what would you say?
I would say that we're very much a brand more than just a solo product. We've made sure that the product itself is also multi-purpose. It's not one application, it's 2 applications in one. And it also has little parts to that product. Okay, we'll forget that last sentence. I would say also that, yeah, we have a strong presence compared to our customers across multiple channels. And the big differentiator is that our business, our brand has a face. There's people involved. We show that. It's not just images of someone using the product. We're actually out in the community. We have a purpose, and we're able to do that at the same time as selling a product.
Okay. Excellent. So, part of your research, you sort of figured out, I guess, your target market or your niche. So what was that initial niche and target market, and how has that changed since you've been running your business?
So the initial target market was around sunscreen. So people who were using sunscreen at the beach to swim, who were using it for kayaking, water sports. They were really the ones we were targeting, because the 2 big pain points that we found during our research is that I couldn't reach my back to apply, so I left it. And the other part was, we want to apply sunscreen, but we don't want to get it on our hands. So that was 2 parts that drove our product design, to make sure that we could solve and provide a product that answered both of those questions, which it did. And I started to get the inclination from even early customers during Kickstarter that would say, this is a great product, but I wouldn't use it for sunscreen. I would use it for moisturizing cream, or I would actually use it to apply lotion to my heels because they're cracked. So that really came to light early on. But in order to go to market, sort of targeting that niche and having, I guess, making sure that our communication was quite clear and not too broad. That's why we went with sunscreen for that first 12 months when we went to market, making sure that we would do events, partnerships, all based and content all around using our product with sunscreen. And then I would say I was visiting a couple of friends and his mother was talking about using the product. And I said, do you mind if I just get a short video on my phone of you applying it to how you would? And she said, certainly. So she said, I'm in my pajamas. She would pull up her pajama leg sitting on a stool. And she said, I usually use it on my leg at night just to moisturize them because I can't really reach down. I did that. It was like a 15-second video. And I remember putting that up on Facebook to run as an ad and choosing the targeting to be 55 and over. And I didn't touch that particular ad for about 18 months. It just ran nonstop. And I just couldn't believe the amount of new customers that were needing it for this purpose, for mobility issues, to put moisturizing cream and other ointments more so on their legs and their heels than their back. So that's really when it started to shift in terms of who we could market to. That then started to take us away from the retail channels of specifically pharmacies and resorts or surf clubs by the beach, to then being able to approach mobility stores, occupational therapists, some nursing homes, and saying, this is what the data is showing us. These are our customers online. However, a common question is they don't want to necessarily order online. Is there a store near them? We don't have a retail store in this particular town. Would you like to be that particular store? So then that's really how it sort of shifted. So we still have presence in those early retail channels in the pharmacies, but it's very much now shifted towards OTs, mobility stores, that aged care sector.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, one thing that's great about being an entrepreneur and having your business is it always evolves. Even with my business, I started out doing a lot more teaching, then evolved to coaching, then more consulting, and then training. So, it's exciting because there's always new challenges. But, one thing, you had a focused target market when you started. If you hadn't had a focused target market, what do you think the impact would have been?
It wouldn't, the brand messaging wouldn't have been aligned with the product. There wouldn't have been alignment. We started this business because because I had a family member impacted by skin cancer. Therefore, I wanted to create a product that would provide a tool to help prevent that by being able to apply sunscreen. This was the reason why the business started. So it was a fit that was our target market. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have had a strong story. And there was so much PR that we were able to earn in those first 3 years. And it was all centered around, here's the story. This is why this product was created. This is their mission. And I think without that, we wouldn't have had a strong identity. It would have been, this is why I started it. But now we're trying to service all these different customers in different markets, and it would have just diluted our messaging. So it was very important that, we went to market with knowing this is who our target market is and why, and then being able to communicate that.
Okay. No, definitely. I'm always telling people that you need to have a smaller target market rather than a bigger target market, especially early on. And also, if you have every target market you have, it's really a different business. You need a whole different business plan for each target market. So,
And you would spread yourself too thin, Andrew, because it takes so much time and resources just to get it right for one target market, if then suddenly you're switching and you're having to change the language, even creating new landing pages, but you just don't want to, yeah, you don't want to cause confusion, which is something we certainly encountered when we started to switch away from just focusing on sunscreen, is that all of our images, all of our messaging was sunscreen. So then aged care providers, mobility providers would then land on our website and be like, is this product just for sunscreen? I don't see it. So yeah, it's a delicate balance.
Yeah. Okay. And it takes a lot of work for each target market. So but as you dig in and get some traction, then that's a way you can grow. But definitely starting out, the more focused you can be, the better. So we've been talking about idea generation, product development on your business. Now, you've also said you work with a lot of other businesses and help them in their idea generation and product development. What would you say are some of the patterns of challenges they face? I've worked with over 1,000 business owners one-on-one, and I could tell you, like, 90% of the time they need help with marketing. Like, what are the things that just keep showing up and that people need to know about or be thinking about or working on in terms of that?
Certainly. I'd say one was probably issues with being able to source suppliers, manufacturers, and being able to plan out that this is the product that I'm creating, but there's a need in the market for it. That's something which usually encounter. So that comes back to research. And I think my passion for research and being so methodical about it is that you want to make sure that there is a need for this product. It's not just something you want to create, because you do need to sell it. Once you've been able to work on that, I definitely think there's always a lack of being able to sell the product, because so much time, and I experienced this myself, you spend so much time getting the product to market, it's like, oh, now I've got to sell it. So thankfully, I've got lots of different channels that I've been able to work in, have some ideas in. So now you can make sure that the businesses you're working with have a plan, that they're already thinking about what are the different sales channels, and different options with sales channels. It's not just paying for online advertising, or going out to retailers. Like, there's many different ways that you can, even if it's through partnerships or collaborations, what ways can you get creative without having to spend a lot of money that will allow you to get exposure and new customers for your business early on without spending a lot of money? That's probably the two that really come to mind.
Okay, great. So now you talked about the market need. Okay. Now, there's many things that are needed, but just because something's needed doesn't necessarily mean it's a market need per se. So how would you define, what real market need is in terms of, developing a product that can be successful?
Good question again. I would say if there is a product need that you can provide evidence and research that there is a product need, not just, this would be cool to have, but something that it's a problem that people face and there's not an adequate solution available. That would probably really steer me and make sure that it's confident that, yes, this is something we can press forward with, because you're always looking for what sort of differentiation does your business or product have that doesn't already exist. So that's really important to understand it and be clear on. Did that
Okay.
answer your question? I felt like
Yeah,
I
I mean,
raved on a bit.
I think that's half of it. The other half is sometimes, there's a lot of people who need something, but are they willing? Is it a need that they're willing to pay for, or pay
So you're talking
enough?
about testing that concept
Of,
early on. Will they pay for it?
yeah, because that's part of the need also. A lot of people start businesses with, products that, either there isn't a need for, or maybe they can't find the right market for their product that has the need. Um, so, definitely any experiences with some of the companies you work with or otherwise, you know, definitely sometimes your target market may not be the right one starting out, but that doesn't mean your product's not viable. But, what types of strategies or, what things can you do as far as being able to find the right target market if you didn't find it the first time?
Okay. I haven't had much experience with businesses who have selected a particular target market and it hasn't been their target market. I think because they've spent time researching, it's been their initial target market, and then they may have added to that target market by adding more services. What I tend to find is that the target market might be a little too broad. So to make it a little bit more narrow, and also probably stream back some of their offerings. There was a vegan ice cream company that I was working with, and they were wanting to go to market with 8 different flavors, and were thinking about purchasing all this plant equipment that would allow them to produce these huge quantities when there wasn't really a need for it in the beginning. You wanted to first test that these recipes, these flavors that you would go to market with, the three to begin with, that they were enjoyed by customers and they would come back and repeat. Um, Look at getting by on smaller equipment to begin with that wasn't going to set the business back tens of thousands of dollars to first prove that concept that there were customers. Um, there was an idea with that particular business to go to market and be the first online ice cream. So you were able to order online and it would be sent out. That would be the first for Australia. There's a company in the US that did it, which they were able to get a lot of research from, but in the end, it was just not suitable. So that's probably one example where they had a particular idea and market in mind, but through research, they found that it wasn't viable. So they went the more traditional route, producing those three flavors, going out to local stockists, and then very quickly having 40 local stockists that were ordering on a weekly basis, then provided the confidence that, okay, yes, this is a product. Now we can look to investing to grow and do larger quantities.
All right. No, great example. Great example. So, one thing about the show is an hour tends to go really fast. So we're bumping up on the hour, but
Yep.
this has been great. And we've covered a lot of good topics and a lot of wisdom in what you shared. So, definitely appreciate you taking the time. Before I let you go, definitely, we like to just have you share 3 key things that people should take away from what we talked about this evening, so that if nothing else, when they wake up tomorrow, they can focus on implementing these 3 things in what they're doing going forward. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. I'll play a short video, and then we'll be back talking small business with Raphael.
Most businesses are not growing, could be more profitable, and have cash flow issues due to lack of capital. What if you knew the secret to generating revenue, maximizing profitability, and acquiring capital when you need it?
I'm Andrew Frazier, and I've developed a proven 5-step framework to take you from startup to scaling faster and easier.
I laid it all out in the Masterpreneur Playbook. It's available now in both English and Spanish on Amazon, Audible, and my website, sbprouU.com. Get your copy today to start selling more and making more sooner.
Hi, I'm back with Raphael McGowan. We're talking small business. We've been talking about idea generation and product development. Raphael, what are 3 key things that people should take away from what we discussed tonight?
Cool. I appreciate that minute. It allowed me time to think about it. I would say the first takeaway would be don't ever let money be a factor that your business stops growing or doesn't move forward. I think that when your back is against the wall and you might not have a lot of funding, that's when you can really get creative. And from that point on, really respect funds and capital in the business when you do have them. That'd be the first. The second would be relationships. Relationships, make sure you maintain those relationships with anyone that you meet throughout your business journey. Keep in contact with them, not to always ask for something, but just to touch base and maybe ask how they're doing, what's been going on. It's very important. And the third, I would say, would be ask for people's feedback. Take it on board. And by asking, it means that you're willing to listen to other people who might have a business background, might not, but they've got experiences most likely related to business that you can learn from. So be willing to listen.
All right, there you have it. Definitely great. Money, definitely. Too much money is worse than not enough money. So learning how to be creative and understand how to use money effectively. Relationships are key, and like you demonstrate, follow up is important. Valuing them as a person as opposed to just someone to get things from, and making it a two-way relationship, and then asking for feedback. That's difficult for a lot of people, especially new people coming into entrepreneurship, because many times you really don't know what you don't know, and I find people are like woefully unprepared for what's ahead of them, but they don't realize it. And sometimes you got to learn the hard way, sometimes you learn the easy way. One of my friends used to say, you can either learn by learning from people who know, or you can learn by losing money. And as a business owner, hopefully you don't lose too much money. Everybody has. I can't say I haven't lost some money, but definitely there's better ways to learn as much as possible without losing money. So thank you again for taking time to hang out with me tonight. Glad you were able to share, and just hang out for a minute as I'm getting ready to close out, and then we'll come back, and let me just close everything out for today. So all right, once again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for my guests who shared some great stuff, and hopefully you got some value out of it. Whether you're here tonight live or you're going to be checking it out as a replay. So definitely some great things you can take away from tonight's discussion, and we hope you do. As well, each week we have different guests, and next week, an exciting week. We've got our topic is leveraging strategic alliances with Scott Overbeck, and one of his specialties is licensing. So licensing your products and services. So that's another way that you can grow your business in a significant way. So look forward to talking to him next week as well. And, just always remember that at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.